Hi guys, welcome back to the Nordic Watch channel. I'm Anders from Finland and today I'm back with another Orient watch for you guys. This time the so-called affordable dive watch king, which is the Orient Kamasu. I've got the black dial, black bezel version, and this video has been quite a while in the making, been swamped at work, so finally getting to this one for you guys. And I got this for myself to see what all the hype is about, because this watch is being really hyped a lot for being a great watch for around 200 euros or bucks. So let's see what all the hype is about. But before that, I just want to give a quick shout out and say that we are just about to hit the 1000 subscriber count, and that's really exciting. I have to thank all of you guys for that. I never thought that even 1000 subscribers would be interested in the content I have for you guys. So big thank you to everybody, and if you like my content and have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. But that's it for the quick shout out. Now let's get to the watch at hand. Even though I am quite impressed with this watch after owning it for a couple of months, I have to say I have a surprising amount of critique for this one. Even though it's a good watch, don't get me wrong, but there are just some things that annoy me about this watch that just might be a matter of my personal preference, but stay tuned for those points at the end of this video. Now let's get Orient has slowly but surely been moving on to Seiko's previous territory, providing truly great in-house watches for affordable prices. The prestigious uncertified title of the best affordable automatic dive watch, which is a hot title in watch enthusiast circles, is arguably at the moment going to the Orient Kamasu. Other contenders for it are probably the Seiko SKX, and maybe the Orient Ray 2 or Mako 2 or the Citizen Pro Master, and comment below if you have any other ideas for that one. So let's start off by talking price. At the moment of this recording, you can get this watch for around $200 off of Amazon, or 200 euros, and I have included some affiliate links in the description below if you decide to get one and want to help out this channel. And considering the specs, this watch having an in-house automatic movement with hacking and hand winding, 200 meters of water resistance, and a sapphire crystal, it's fair to say that the price is great for the specs. But that being said, do keep in mind that it costs almost twice as much as the older generation Orient Ray and Mako 2 models. Links to these below too, but for that extra $100 or euros you are getting an upgraded sapphire crystal, but otherwise the specs are essentially the same. So the Orient Kamasu comes in a few different color and strap variations. On the metal bracelet there's this one, the black dial with black bezel version. Then there's one that has a red dial with a black bezel. There's also a green variant which has a matching bezel or matching dial and bezel. And then there's a blue variant that also has a blue dial and blue bezel. So those are the ones you can get on a bracelet. And then on a silicone strap, which is a little bit cheaper, you can get the blue version, or then you can get a black IP coated case version. This has kind of these gold colored details. I really like what Orient did with the color variations, and I think they did a great job on picking the colors for these. I still opted for this classic all black version. I just think a black one goes great with any kinds of clothing, but I do think that the green or red versions would have been great for the summer. Now that we have discussed the price and color variations, let's talk about dimensions next. So the size of this watch is really similar to the Ray 2 and the Mako 2. The case has a diameter of 41.8 mm and it has a lug-to-lug of 46.3 mm. The thickness is 12.8 and it has a 22 mm lug width. So it's pretty much identical in dimensions when you compare to the Orient Ray and Mako models. And in my opinion, the 41.8mm diameter and the 46mm lug-to-lug is a fantastic size for many wrists, including my own. The flat sapphire crystal helps keep the thickness down, and the size is pretty spot on for smaller wrists without taking away from the wrist presence that people with larger wrists might be looking after. So as I already commented, the case is pretty compact and nicely sized for a decent sized wrist or a smaller sized wrist. Those lugs are nicely curved down to make it sit nicely on the wrist, and also those female end links helping to make the bracelet fall directly down. The watch wears more like a 39 to 40mm watch, and that is partly due to these rounded lugs that curve down and the fact that the bracelet has these female end links that make the bracelet fall nicely and directly downwards from the lug and making it hug the wrist nicer. The bracelet itself is made out of solid links except for the hollow end links, and it's an oyster style bracelet with just your basic stamped clasp with this kind of securing system here with these side pushers, really secure latching of the clasp, and you have Orient branded there. The bracelet is brushed and the sides are polished. It has push pins, which is no surprise for a watch at this price range, and the clasp has 4 micro adjustments, making it easy to get to fit on your wrist. It's an okay bracelet, but it does have a rattling effect to it, more on that later. On the case back, I have to say this is one of the more underwhelming things about this watch. There is this really not so deep engraving, including 2 dolphins swimming in a circle or something, and it's really just some etching there, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of pointless, and it could have just as well been almost just your plain no logo case back, because this just adds no value for me. The engraving on the Orient Ray 2 and Mako 2 models was a little bit deeper than this one, if I'm not mistaken, and this is a step down in quality in my opinion. It's just a bit underwhelming. But having commented on the case back, I think the case itself is a bit of an upgrade from the Orient Ray 2 and Mako 2 models. I know I haven't made a review video of those watches, but I have handled them in person. And one example of better finishing on the case is this beveled edge here between the top of the lug and the side of the case. That did not exist on the Mako 2 and Ray 2 models, and it adds some nice detail when we are transitioning from the top of the lug to the side of the case. It has this nice sort of little bevel there. Not a huge fan of the crown guards on this one though. I think it's just weird looking that the crown guards are kind of really straight to that pretty small crown. Some nice notches to this crown though. It's really easy to grip even with gloves on, so that's an improvement. But that being said, the crown itself is really wonky and kind of wobbly when being handled, so that then again is not a good thing. It is signed though, but screw-in crown, which adds to the street credibility of this dive style watch, which does have 200 meters of water resistance. Another upgrade from the Ray 2 and Mako 2 models are, even though the bezel pretty much looks the same, it has a little bit of a different font, and the lume pip at the 12 o'clock is inside of the insert instead of being a pip on top. The bezel itself, the 120 click unidirectional bezel, is more substantial and has more gripping surface, making it really easy to turn even with gloves on without making it feel cheap and tinny. So the bezel is a really nice surprise on this watch, all in all. We already mentioned that the Orient Kamasu has a little bit of an upgraded design compared to the Ray and Mako models. And well, on the bezel you can see that it has these markers with 1 minute increments, making the bezel look a little bit more sporty or busy maybe. Also, we have applied indices at the hour markers, which are polished and actually quite large, or they go a long way into the center of the dial. Also contributing to a rather busy dial in my opinion, but it does look sporty nonetheless. For the handset, we have a pretty large arrow-shaped hour hand, and then we have a sword-shaped minutes hand. And then the seconds hand looks like it's the same one as on the older Ray and Mako models, which is a polished seconds hand with a loomed little arrow point painted red there. All in all, a pretty working design in my opinion. The writing on the dial doesn't make it overcrowded. We only have Orient Automatic with an applied Orient logo there at the 12 o'clock, and then we have water resist 20 bar down at the 6 o'clock. Everything seems to align pretty nicely and no problems with that if you would compare with, for example, entry-level Seikos with alignment problems. This seems to align pretty nicely. Not having any alignment issues can partly be due to not having a chapter ring there, as you can see, so that eliminates some of the problems. We have a framed day and date window, square shapes, and it looks to be polished. Also, maybe that little beveled edge there is brushed. We have a white day and date wheel or wheels with black text, so that could have of course been the other way around with a black wheel with white text, but that's pretty common. The dial itself is a really slight sunburst dial, and for example in this lighting it doesn't show, but I'll show you how it looks in sunlight, and then that sunburst effect does come out when in direct sunlight. All in all, a pretty nice looking design, and that is complemented by a really nice loom on all the indices, which you can see here. Orient is, in my opinion, pretty much on Seiko's level with entry-level watches and their loom. Orient never disappoints me with the clarity of their loom, and this Orient Kamasu is no exception. Really just great looking loom and tons of it on all indices, as you can see. Now some quick comments about the movement inside this Kamasu. It's an Orient in-house F6922 movement. Pretty basic automatic movement, comes with hacking and hand winding and 40 hours of power reserve. Rest of the specs up here. According to my own experience, it's pretty quiet on the wrist, and it has bidirectional winding, so seems to be quite efficient, and it's always nice when you can hand wind the watch when you're taking it back into rotation to quickly get that power reserve up and running. But not really much to say about the movement other than that it seems to be a really good and basic movement. Size comparisons are always handy when you're trying to figure out if you want to get a watch or not, so let's do some size comparisons with the Orient Kamasu here with some popular models. So here's the Seiko SKX next to the Kamasu, and then let's still take the Seiko Sea Urchin next to it, and there you have them side by side. Pretty similar dimensions to each of them. And let's just do a quick wrist shot compilation of these. And let's just add the SIN 556 there as a bonus. So there you go, a nice quick size comparison between a few watches. Hope that helps. And for wrist persons, all I can say is it's a really comfortable watch. And yeah, great fit on even a smaller wrist. And I can see this working on larger wrist too, as I've said before. Okay, let's wrap this video up with a small pros and cons list. Now, I promised you guys that I was going to also have some negatives about this watch, and this video would not be all praise. And I'm going to keep that promise now and list you all the things that I do not like about the Orient Kamasu. And there's quite a lot of them actually. Okay, so let's start by these crown guards here. I think these crown guards are a little bit too long and they protrude too much out from the case, and that makes that space between the crown and the crown guard look kind of awkward. I think they could have done with a lot shorter crown guards on this one. Also, the crown itself, at least on my watch, is a little bit flimsy and wobbly, and it makes me worry that the crown is going to fall right off if I'm too rough with it. But I'm not sure if that's just my particular watch. Next up, I already mentioned this, but it's the case back with that etching with two dolphins. I just think that's somewhat underwhelming, and I just think it doesn't need to be there at all. But that being said, it doesn't do any harm, of course, because it's just a case back. So yeah, what's the harm with having a little etching on the case back? Now for one thing that's probably just preference for me, but the combination of a lot of markers on the bezel here with these dots with 1 minute increments, together with having this minute track on the dial itself with 1 minute increments, and having these rather large hour indexes, make for a pretty busy dial. It's a little bit maybe even too sporty if you compare to, let's say, the Orient Ray 2. I understand that probably can be a positive for some people, but for me it maybe takes away a little bit from the versatility of this watch, and that's something that I didn't know this while looking at pictures of the watch, but when I tried wearing this watch with more nice clothing, like nice shirts and stuff like that, it just felt a little bit too sporty for clothes like that. But maybe that's just my opinion. Also, I've never really been a fan of the Orient logo on the dials of their watches, but that's something that's not going to change anytime soon, and it's just something that comes with the package. And that's something that many people have the same opinion about the Orient logo, but it's something you get used to. One more thing on the dial is that day and date wheel could be in black with a black background instead of a white background to make it blend into the dial more nicely, but that's a pretty small thing. Then there's one more thing, and that's the bracelet. It is okay and decent, but a few comments about this one too. It does have kind of a loud noise to it, but that's just something that comes with watches in this price category. But I noticed that it has almost like a 0.5 millimeter gap between the lug and the end links, which are hollow by the way. So that's one small issue. And one more thing about the bracelet, I think that it could use a little bit more tapering down to the clasp to make it a bit more slim. It's a bit chunky right now, but those who like more wrist presence on their watches maybe like a bracelet that doesn't taper that much. So those were my negatives about the watch, but let's keep in mind that this watch is only around $200 or euros, so really what you're getting with this watch is fantastic value for money. You're getting 200 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crystal, in-house movement with hacking and hand winding, bidirectional winding, 40 hours of power reserve. You're getting fantastic lume. You're getting a really nice design, not to mention that the actual size of the watch is great for many sizes of wrists. So keeping the positives in mind, those negatives start to sound a lot less substantial. So all in all, I think that this is a great watch for the money, don't get me wrong, but there are always some shortcomings for every watch, and that's just something that is always a factor in this hobby. So just wanted to point those things out for you guys, so you get my full honest opinion about this watch. But as I said, that being said, I really do think that this watch is a great value for money watch, and I can understand why there's a lot of hype about it. Anyways, that's pretty much everything I have to say about this watch. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, shoot me a comment down below in the comment section. Go check me out on Instagram at Nordic Watch Channel, and yeah, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so that's awesome. Let's keep the train going, and yeah, stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.